Please listen carefully.
Hello, universe. Welcome to the Optimist Daily Update. I'm Summers McKay.
And I'm Kristy Jansen, and we are part of the team behind the Optimist Daily, making solutions the news. We bring you reader-funded solutions news every day in order to change the tenor of news media, social media, and the direction of your day to help us all get focused on solutions.
7 days a week, we publish positive news stories written by award-winning journalists and delivered online to your inbox and through our social channels. And also, we are sharing these solutions in a commute-worthy, walk-worthy, home office-worthy, Monday Fun Day-worthy podcast. Today is Monday, the 18th of April, 2022. And today is one of our staff writer, SEO guru, all-around fun guy's birthday. Happy birthday, Victor Caruso. We are very grateful to have you on the team.
Happy birthday, Victor. You think he's listening?
Probably not.
Well, yeah, we'll make him listen. That's his birthday present. He has to listen to the podcast.
Right. No, we actually gave him the morning meeting off so that he doesn't have to come to the meeting this morning. But I did promise him we would sing him happy birthday in the Monday morning meeting and send it to him as a file. So we will follow through on all of those things. Kristy, there's another big birthday happening, right?
That's right. My son turns 16 tomorrow.
Pretty cool.
Yeah. Is that one you're talking about?
Yes.
Yeah. It is pretty cool. And he's right there where I'm now humiliating him regularly when I pick him up from school. Mm-hmm. So we're negotiating that transition from being cool mom to being I really don't want to be seen with you, mom.
Mm-hmm. I kind of remember that moment when our older child, like our oldest child, used to sort of get gleeful when I would pick him up from school, and then that moment where it was like looking down and walking to the car, and I was like, oh, I'm not cool anymore. It'll only be about a decade, and then you'll be fine.
we can be friends again at some point. But
so he is doing driving, right? And when is the driving test planned? Like probably 6 months, or
he's been practicing. October-ish is when he could potentially test for his license, but he has to get a lot more practice driving in first. So,
well, congratulations, mom of a 16-year-old, almost. Definitely a rite of passage in parenting and learning about ourselves.
Yeah, it is. Parenting is really, it's about, you have to kind of reparent yourself in the process.
Yep.
I mean, to be a successful parent, I think that's a big part of, establishing new boundaries even within yourself.
Well, I'm listening to a book right now called The Whole-Brained Child, and it is all about integration between emotions and logic and helping both a parent find integration within their own emotions and logic, because a lot of that thinking wasn't necessarily how we were parented in earlier generations, and then sort of teaching ourselves to be more integrated so that when we find ourselves flipping our lid or hot buttons or feeling emotional, acknowledging and recognizing that there's two different parts of our brain that are possibly battling. And then by acknowledging that, also looking at our little teeny tiny people, or in your case, taller than you 16-year-old boys, and recognizing that disintegration is sort of the job of parenting, is helping people integrate those emotions and logic together in order to make good decisions and navigate this world in a gentle and joyous way. So we'll keep trying.
I mean, the struggle is to grow up enough to be a good parent to your child. Yeah. And I think you don't really grow up until you start trying to be a good parent to your children.
And just sort of giving grace to the challenges of the parents who raised you and their own disintegration or integration, and knowing that we're all just human. But sometimes parents are really embarrassing and do really weird things. My own parents still do like really weird things, but I love them, and they're great grandparents. So
everybody's human.
All right. Well, speaking of human, let's just jump into not human news. My headline is about plastic. I am currently divesting of a lot of plastic as we're going through this remodel and paring down things in our life. And certainly some of the conversations we've had with, the folks who were giving us really good insight on the risks of plastic as food containers and plastic in our lives. So that being said, you can get rid of plastic in a lot of ways and use it less and find other reusable tools, but there are still some places that plastic exists and is going to keep existing.
There's a reason that plastic has become so ubiquitous. It's a really useful substance.
Exactly. Being useful means perhaps it can repair itself. My headline reads, Self-repairing plastic soon to become reality thanks to Japanese scientists. A team of researchers in Japan has developed a type of plastic that can actually repair itself. Potential uses include smartphones, cars, other applications, reducing the amount of plastic that ends up discarded and polluting the environment. Now, coming from the scientists at the University of Tokyo, this self-repairing material involves a mixture between conventional plastic and a specialized agent that enables the material to heal its own cracks and fissures. Most of the plastic that is produced ends up in landfills, incinerators, and our oceans, where it can take centuries to break down. But the study author, Takuzo Aida, is quoted as saying this technique can lead to the development of a sustainable made-to-last plastic that does not need to be discarded or recycled.
That's so cool.
I know. So how does it work? The new development wants to help solve the plastic pollution problem by reducing the need for plastics in the first place, as well as creating a new substance called polyether thiourea. As part of this latest study, Aida and his colleagues used the substance to create a plastic that can repair its own cracks by pressing the fragmented pieces against each other at room temperatures. Other plastics traditionally need really high temperatures to be remelted and reformed, which is both an energy intensive process and also a fiscally intensive process. So it's actually cheaper to make new plastic than to fix old plastic, which is why so much gets dumped. This novel material fixes broken molecule chains thanks to a process called hydrogen bonding. When the broken pieces are pressed against one another at room temperature, just about an hour, the material will regenerate and regain durability. Guys, think about your cracked phone screen.
I know, I was thinking about that.
All you have to do is press them together for an
Put it
hour.
in a vise and it'll fix itself.
Exactly. Just put them in a little vise and say, here you go, friend. In reading this, obviously we know that still we don't want to use plastic for food storage. And my guess would be this kind of plastic would not be appropriate in any way for food storage if it does have such fluidity in its hydrogen bonds and in its bonds and chains. But again, it could be used for those smartphone screens, home appliances, furniture, eyeglass frames. How great would that be? And even car material. So think about the little fender bender, little break, and then just squish it back together. So I like this. I think it's a good solution. We talk all the time about not having siloed solutions and also not assuming that we can eradicate the world of any one given thing. But if we can make that one thing that we use better, that really lifts us all in the right direction.
Well, it's also, it kind of still goes away from the consumer throwaway kind of mentality where things are so cheap that it's actually cheaper to just get a new thing.
Right.
But buying quality products that are built to last reduces the amount of waste that gets generated. And with plastic, which is typically made out of petroleum products, oil, if it lasts longer, then it'll contain the carbon that's embedded in it longer, as opposed to if you burn it, where it just releases that into the atmosphere, or it uses all that energy to create it as well. So yeah. Talk about sustainability solutions, right? This is a sustainability solution. I'm also talking about a solution which is building for a more sustainable future and a more resilient future. And my headline reads, New York City makes plans to become more spongy. We wrote, and I think I talked on the podcast a few weeks ago about sponge cities. And what sponge cities are population centers which are planned to absorb increased rainfall or to absorb increased water, as opposed to being just concrete jungles where things just wash off into the storm systems, which overwhelms the river systems, and all that pollution goes into the oceans. And it's also not very effective. We've seen tremendous flooding in places like Houston over the last few years, and New York. So this is about New York and the steps that New York is taking to alter its infrastructure, to embrace the new reality, the changing climate, which promises increased storm surges and significantly increased rainfall in that coastal region. Other cities that are doing similar things include London and Paris, which are moving away from having traffic in their city centers. Cities are living entities almost, if you think about them. They're not fixed in some ways. So the idea is that New York is becoming more resilient by doing this to prepare for both chronic storm events, which are cloudburst events that we see occurring more frequently, as well as extreme storms like Hurricane Ida, which led to such tremendous flooding that some people actually lost their lives. That was pretty awful. And, sea level rise is not a joke either. So building now for a future that, understands that there's going to be more rainfall and more water is important. New York already has a pretty significant portion of, quotes, green infrastructure. A recent report showed that about 39% of the city is already considered green space, and that includes parks, street side trees, green waterfront areas, and the soil in those green spaces actually helps to absorb flood water. And also New York is naturally high in sandy soils, which is good because that allows more water as opposed to clay, which ends up becoming very hard ground. But certain areas of the city, the urban planners are looking at them to see where do they need to add more absorbent areas. So they're strategically, quotes, greening up the city. They've already invested about $1 billion in expanding the green infrastructure and incentivizing residents to build rooftop green spaces and gardens to also help absorb water. Is it enough? I don't know, because they also really need to upgrade the gray infrastructure, which is the old sewage system. New York was always on the cutting edge, but now it needs, all that hard infrastructure really is ready to be upgraded. Right now, the sewage system it's like 1.75 inches, but when you have 3.5 inches of rain in an hour, it cannot flush all that water out. And so they are working to perhaps shore up the stormwater systems and the sewage systems to be able to account for all of that increased capacity.
This reminds me of the conversation we had with artist Sarah Tunde, right? Which was really about seeing places that we loved and places that we cherish as a culture and finding ways to make space for them and to elongate the useful life of those spaces, even though our climate is changing. We actually touched on this yesterday in the Optimist View when we talked about global climate change and as it affects us all, but that there is collaboration and coming together and celebration and rebirth and opportunity. Kristy, what else are we learning today on the Optimist Daily?
Well, other headlines include a story about onions and garlic and asking, are they actually healthy? I haven't read that yet, but I'm curious.
Are you a garlic person? Do you like garlic?
I love garlic. I love onions. And I've understood that they're healthy, but I hope I'm right because they certainly add flavor.
Yeah, let's find out.
There's a bill before the California State Assembly that are used for a 4-day work week. DNA motors revolutionize tiny biological robots. What this zebrafish gene reveals about autism in humans. And this is interesting. I mean, zebrafish actually have a lot to say about mental processes, and there's a lot of applications. So that's interesting. And finally, there's an encyclopedia which contains TV's history of blackness, which is coming available. That and so much more on theoptimistdaily.com. Thanks everybody for listening to the Optimist Daily Update. We promise to keep sharing positive solution-based stories, ideas on how you can participate in a changing world and ensure it is change for the good.
As always, thank you guys for listening. For now, we're going to turn it over to one of our staff members and the producer of this illustrious podcast, who is going to share with the world why she loves her job and why we are grateful for all those who support the Optimist Daily.
Hi everyone, this is Ariel, content producer for the Optimist Daily Update and contributing editor on theoptimistdaily.com. I started my journey with Summers, Kristy, and the rest of the team as a staff writer just over a year ago, and I can honestly say that the community I've become a part of here has been a huge light during a period of transition and shifting. I'm sure I'm not alone when I say that the events of the last couple of years have totally changed my trajectory, and adapting to a new reality has been made so much easier because of the stability and positive outlook my job here helps me cultivate within my own life, both on and off the clock. Of course, all of this is made possible in part because of our amazing emissaries who support us in our mission to spread a solutions-focused consciousness that allows us to think creatively about solving the world's biggest problems. So here's my heartfelt thank you to all our emissaries out there. And of course, a big thank you to those of you who simply tune in too. Everyone on our team appreciates each one of you, so we hope you'll keep listening, reading, and connecting with us. Thanks again, and we'll be back tomorrow with more solutions.